Alright guys, with the most recent release of the latest DPS character Acheron, I thought I would go through who I consider the best DPS characters currently in 2.1. Before we get into it, please subscribe to the channel, would really appreciate it, and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. First and foremost, I'll be ranking these characters considering of course how much damage they can deal, how valuable they are, and just how easy it is to run them. Also, these characters will be ranked as E0 and will have their best setups in terms of teams. Now with 5th place, it can be seen as a bit controversial, but let me land. I believe it should go to Topaz. Now I know in terms of DPS you may find characters such as Dr. Ratio, Argenti and Jingliu to deal more damage than Topaz, but the value she brings along with great DPS, not the best, is what makes her such an asset to have. Now what I mean by the value she brings to your account. Topaz is essentially an enabler for follow-up attack characters, and she enables them to deal 50% more follow-up attack damage. How she is able to enable this is through her skill. Inflicts a single target enemy with a proof of death status, increasing the damage it takes from follow-up attacks by 50%. Proof of death only takes effect on the most recent target it is applied to. If there are no enemies inflicted with proof of death on the field when an ally's turn starts or when an ally takes action, Topaz will inflict a random enemy with proof of death. The second part of the skill is pretty huge, since it means if you defeat an enemy with the proof of death status, it will be transferred over to someone random rather than having to wait for Topaz to reapply the proof of death status. So there will be at least an enemy on the field that you can still deal an extra 50% follow-up attack damage to. On top of that, Topaz deals a single target attack which would be considered as a follow-up attack. Topaz will forever hold value in the game in my opinion. She is able to buff a ton of characters that deal follow-up attacks such as Dr. Ratio, Jingliu, Himiko and any other follow-up attack characters that release later down the line. Speaking of which, Aventurine is soon to release in a couple of weeks, and he also deals a follow-up attack through his skill, and I believe he would have great synergy with Topaz. So that just goes to show, even characters releasing many updates later will have great synergy with Topaz if their kit involves follow-up attacks. This is the reason why I believe she deserves a spot at the top. The only issue is, as you may have figured, Topaz would heavily rely on follow-up attack characters being on the team. Without them, her follow-up attack orientated kit is somewhat useless and it will take a while for Numby to have his turn to attack. So the overall investment for the team will be quite high since you will need to build multiple 5 stars and actually summon for them. Coming in at 4th place would be Kafka. Now being a Kafka simp, I would have loved to have placed her higher, but I'll explain why she can chill in 4th place. Similar to Topaz, Kafka is an enabler. Rather than buffing follow-up attacks, Kafka is able to detonate the dots her teammates apply on enemies. How she is able to do that would be through her skill and ultimate. With her skill, if the target enemy is currently receiving dots, all dots currently placed on that enemy immediately produce damage equal to 75% of their original damage. With Kafka's ultimate, through her trace, she would be able to detonate dots. When the ultimate is used, enemy targets will now receive damage immediately from all currently applied dot sources instead of just receiving damage immediately from the currently applied shock state. So what all of this ultimately means is when you have characters on your team that can apply dots such as burn, shock or wind shear, rather than having to wait till the enemy's turn for the dot to tick, Kafka can set them all off during your turn through her skill and ultimate. Paired with the right teammates, Kafka can deal some insane damage. However, it's just that, it will depend on her teammates in order for her to deal that insane damage. This would also be seen as a barrier to deal crazy damage with Kafka. You can definitely get by with free-to-play options such as Gwenaife and Osampo, but characters like Black Swan and Rohan Mei will enhance the damage immensely, therefore making the team for Kafka investment heavy. Black Swan also plays a huge role to enable Kafka to deal some immense damage, so you would kinda need her in order to really pop off. But similar to Topaz again, Kafka still holds and will remain to hold value for many more updates since she is the backbone to dot compositions. If any dot characters come out in the future, you will definitely want to run them with Kafka. Coming in at 3rd place would be the one and only Jingliu. Now rewind a couple months back, Jingliu was the best character in the game by far. She has been power crept, but I can assure you she is still an amazing DPS. Now unlike Topaz and Kafka where they would buff the teammates in their own way, Jingliu is a pure DPS that deals a ton of damage. The kink with Jingliu's kit is her talent. When Jingliu reaches 2 stacks of synergy, she enters the spectral state, which will advance forward action by 100% and crit rate increases up to 50%. Also within this state, Jingliu's skill switches from a single target to a blast skill, which will deal damage to adjacent enemies as well as a single target. In addition, Jingliu will only be able to use her skill, and it won't consume skill points, making her skill point positive, ensuring you have skill points for your supports to buff her damage even further. Being able to do all of this comes at a small cost. Every time Jingliu attacks in her spectral state, she she will consume 4% of her allies' HP, so you will need to keep an eye on her HP. But the damage Jingliu is able to deal within her spectral state would completely outweigh the small cost of losing HP. The reason why I believe Jingliu is such an amazing DPS is because she is able to deal tons of damage with less investment required into her as well as a team in comparison to characters like Kafka and Topaz. The 50% crit rate during her spectral state is insanely valuable, and it will reduce the hindrance of having to acquire relics with a ton of crit rate. You will only be relying on her damage in the spectral state, so you are essentially given 50% crit rate for free. With her team, she is very versatile and would benefit massively with only one character being Bronya, which is a standard banner unit. So it would be much easier to pull Bronya than limited characters like Black Swan for Kafka, making it much easier to run Jingliu optimally. Jingliu only needing Bronya to really pop off would allow you to somewhat be creative with the remaining two positions on your team. You could have a sustainer along with another support or a sub DPS. Absurd DPS with a beautiful design, Jingliu is definitely an amazing DPS that is still up there for sure. As for second place, it would be given to Imbibitor Lunae. Now, similar to the Kafka and Black Swan situation where Black Swan is a must for Kafka to pop off, Imbibitor Lunae would very much need Sparkle to pop off. Imbibitor Lunae heavily relies on skill points in order to maximize his damage potential, and now with Sparkle it is much easier to pull off and allows for more consistency with Imbibitor Lunae's damage. Imbibitor Lunae is just an insane damage dealer, and majority of it would come from his enhanced normal attack. Imbibitor Lunae's skill will enhance his normal attack up to 3 times. The more you enhance his normal attack, the more skill points will be used. The normal attack as it is will deal minimal damage to a single target. However, if you enhance the normal attack by 3 times, it completely changes it, dealing an enormous amount of damage, and it will switch from a single target to a blast attack. Imbibitor Lunae's ultimate is also able to deal a ton of damage, and provides 2 Squama Sacrosancta stacks that can be seen as artificial skill points. So after you pop his ultimate, you can use those 2 stacks as 2 skill points to enhance the basic attack. Imbibitor Lunae is able to buff himself through his talent as well as his traces, allowing him to deal absurd damage. But that wouldn't matter if he doesn't have the skill points to take advantage of those buffs. So just like how Jingliu would be a ton more efficient to use with Bronya, Imbibitor Lunae is just more efficient to use and easier to play with Sparkle on the team. Sparkle increasing the skill point cap and regenerating 4 skill points from ultimate will allow Imbibitor Lunae to seriously deal some damage and much more consistently. Imbibitor Lunae is able to exceed Jingliu's damage with the help of Sparkle, so as long as you have this ultimate duo together, they will be causing some carnage. Now the best DPS character, and to no surprise, is Acheron. This character is beyond broken when it comes to damage output. Acheron being the first character in StarRail to rely on no energy to use her ultimate and would rely on more debuff application on enemies. Her skill applies the Crimson Knot debuff on a single enemy that would be considered as a stack of /stream, which she will need 9 of to pop her ultimate. The Crimson Knot stacks also act as a damage increase depending on how many stacks you have inflicted onto the enemy when you pop her ultimate. Once you reach 9 stacks of /stream, you are able to pop the ult, but you are able to overstack on those /stream stacks, allowing you to plan out your turn maybe to get another character's ult off to lower defense before you pop Acheron's ultimate. Then when you finally pop Acheron's ultimate, not only is it the best looking ultimate in the game by far, but it deals a ton of damage. Acheron would need 2 Nihility characters on the team that activates a trace that allows her to deal an additional 160% increased damage through her basic attack, skill and ultimate. 160% increased damage is no joke, and this being provided through having to run 2 Nihility characters with her, which you would preferably run regardless, makes this trace insanely valuable. Amongst the Nihility characters, the best in slot would be Pella, which is a free to play option and majority of players should have with a few Eidolons by now. The second Nihility character is open to many options, making Acheron somewhat versatile too. Acheron not only has the best looking animations in the game, but also has the best technique, as it allows you to instant kill normal enemies, which allows you to skip entering battle entirely. This character, from her kit to her design, is out of this world. The only issue I could mention is that her Litecoin options are very limited, as she is a crit Nihility character, which is the first of a kind. However, I do expect more options to be available for her in the future that can be acquired through an event or 4-star Litecoins through Gacha. Acheron is the best DPS by far due to her explosive damage output and just how great she looks doing it. Well, that wraps it up for the best DPS characters in 2.1. If you guys enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, would really appreciate it, and drop a like. Also, leave a comment on whether you agree with me or not. If not, drop your rankings below and I would love to see what you guys think. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.